Okay, so we have our Geometry Dash game here, which sort of works. I didn't make the fire show up, but I just made it invisible um, when it crashes. And we're going to look at part 2 for Geometry Dash, which is a little bit challenging because the directions are for a previous version of Hopscotch. So we had to think a little harder here or adapt to what's on here. So we're going to add a scoreboard. One thing to notice when, let's see, well, let's just start working on it. So first thing I'm going to do is add some text. And we're going to say the text is score, S-C-O-R-E, score. Okay, we're going to put the score up there. And then we're going to add the code for score. The previous version says add a new rule, which is what it used to say here. Now it says add code. So that's what we're going to do is add code. Okay, so the previous version also said when blank equals blank, which is not an option here. But whenever we want to start with the word when, it's going to be one of these magenta colored blocks. So let's just look for when equals. Oh, here we go. So we're going to use when equals. All right, and then we have our when something equals something else that we were looking for. So what we want to do is add a variable in the first square. So we're just going to tap in there where the 7 is. And then on the bottom, we're going to, below the word multiply, we're going to tap on the little button that says objects right here. And we're going to go to our objects. And we're going to say, okay, when invisibility as a percent. So invisibility as a percent equals, oh wait, not of ourself though, of the square. So we're going to tap there and change that to the square. And then we're going to say when it equals 0, because we want to say keep score as long as we can see the square. As soon as we can't see the square, we don't want to keep score. So, whoops, so we want to say when it's 0% invisible, which means totally visible. It's kind of a double negative there. Okay, so when we do that, what do we want to do? We want to increase the value. So we want to go to variables, and here's the word increase. It's yellow here under variables. So we're going to increase, and we're going to create a new variable in this first, the one that's blinking right there. So we're going to tap the word new variable right down here under points, new variable, and we're going to call it, point. How's that? I think that's what the tutorial called it. Point. Okay. So we're going to increase point by 1. So it's going to go up 1 point as long as it's visible. Okay. So in the tutorial it said to leave and go set a new rule, but for this version all we need to do is tap in here, and as you can see it's blinking now, add a new rule. So we can add another rule. So we're going to say when game starts. The tutorial says when play button is pressed. It's the same thing when you press the play button, but the newer version calls it when game starts. So when the game starts, we're going to repeat something forever. Let's see, repeat forever, and we're going to set text. Let's see, set text. So we want the text of our new variable that we created, and right here it looks like we can only type text, which isn't what we want. So we're going to look at, in the middle of the screen, far over to the right, right next to the check mark, you can see an abacus. It looks like 3 lines with some little dots on it. I'm going to touch it right here, and then it gives us some other options. I can go over to then objects under the multiply button again. There we go. And I can choose our new variable, which we made. It was called point. So we're going to set the text to points, to point. Okay, let's see what that does. Don't take any more notes, so I hope I did it right. Oh, so it stops. Okay, I think that worked. Let's see, play. I'm going to jump over it, and the thing continues. Now I'm going to let them crash. Boom, and it stops the clock. So my high score is 323. So that's pretty complicated because the tutorial doesn't really match what you're doing, but hopefully that helps.